Hello everyone, it's Teresa again here with the next video on the cause of suppression. And just to recap, so what we're covering really is, why is it some people are ill more than others? What's really the source of stress? Why can your emotions be on a roller coaster, up, down, etc.? What's really behind that? And on the first video that I did, we went over lots of examples of that. So actually I'll probably I'll either put a link in the description or in the comments so that you can go back and look at the first video if you've missed it. But yes, what we covered, one of the things we covered was suppression, which is a harmful intention or action against which one cannot fight back. Thus, when one can do anything about it, it is less suppressive. So we went over the harmful acts really, I suppose, a lot in the first video. And in this video, what we're going to do is go over is how you can do something about it. And one of the things you can do about it is gain knowledge. Because the more you know about how something works, obviously, then the more you can be in control of it. So we're going to cover in this video the antisocial personality. And what it says here, we're still using this book, Scientology Handbook by L. Ron Hubbard. And what it says here is there are certain characteristics and mental attitudes which cause about 20% of a race to oppose violently any betterment activity or group. So that means if you're doing any betterment activity or any part of a betterment group, they're going to oppose you, and they might not do it openly. It's not always an open, obvious thing. Yeah, it might be something as simple as you're doing night classes and you want to get some exams, and you might, sometimes it's a very obvious trying to stop you, like someone says you're just wasting your time, and sometimes it can be a bit more subtle, like maybe just a comment like, oh no, not everyone's going to pass, I suppose, or little thing to maybe make you go into doubt. But there's 20% of any race that will oppose any betterment activity. So what it says here as well is crime and criminal acts are perpetrated by antisocial personalities. Now the obvious examples we'll probably all know about, like Hitler's wasn't exactly a social guy. And there's things we read in the newspapers or we see on the news, mass murderers, etc. Sometimes people are very obviously antisocial. But as it's 20%, I'll show you this picture actually, quite a good picture. 80% social, 20% antisocial. 20%, fortunately it's not the majority, but it's quite a high amount. It's 1 in 5 people actually are antisocial or have antisocial tendencies. And they make life rough for the rest of us. They make life hard for us. And I think possibly one of the things that makes it hard to confront if you're a social personality is, well, why would someone do that? Why is someone, intentions are a harmful intention or action against you? Why would that occur? And I'd certainly know, speaking for myself, times where I've not really acted in time, or I've maybe acted a bit slowly and had a friend that was antisocial. It has been, a lot of it's been to do with facing up to where that person's at and the fact that they are trying to harm you. And that's quite a hard thing to face up to sometimes. Like I say, there's obvious examples, but then there's not so obvious ones as well. Or even in the obvious examples, sometimes you read in the newspaper some mass murderer and the neighbours are like, seemed like such a nice person, just seemed like a normal guy. And they can seem that way. Anyway, so the cause of suppression, there's a booklet that you can get, which tells you all about it. And the antisocial personality has 12 attributes. Now we're not going to go over all 12 because we'll be here a while, but I'll go over a couple of them and just give an example or two, just to give just to give a bit of an idea of where, you know, or how that person is, so that you can recognise it. But what I would recommend is you do the free course, and you can find out about all 12 characteristics, and you can make, you know, you'll have your own examples from your life. But let me just read, I'll read this one. Right, so here's one of the characteristics. The antisocial personality supports only destructive groups and rages against and attacks any constructive or betterment group. So, okay, where do you see that? In this day and age, you can have a wee scan through Twitter or social media, and you will find, maybe in the past you might not have known somebody was really against something or really for something. It might not have been something that you'd find out. But with social media, a lot of people do sometimes openly say sometimes quite extremely critical or hostile things towards a betterment group or activity. So you can see it there if you've not experienced it. I have experienced it. I've thought an example, this was quite a few years ago, but I was chatting to a girl and her friend was to the side. She wasn't really involved in our conversation, she was kind of waiting on her. But me and this girl got onto the subject of a thing called Narconon. And Narconon means non-narcotics. And it's a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. It's a residential program, and people are gotten off their addictions. And it's the most successful rehab program, as far as I'm aware, in the world. And certainly after 5 years, the amount of people that go back, anyway, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant program. And we got chatting about this, and we were also chatting about, there was another program we both knew about. I'm sure there's a few good programs, but this other one, I won't say what it's called, but it starts with P, and this was more like a drug reassignment program, because what they did was they got people in and they basically put them on a different drug, a more acceptable drug that was prescribed by the doctor, etc. Not an illegal substance, but it was a completely different program, and we were talking about that. And also this other program was about 5 times more expensive. There was lots of things we were talking about, and this girl was quite interested. But then her friend overheard a bit, and she butted in. And this is in real life, this is the only person I've ever heard speak out against Narconon to me. Like I say, on social media, it's amazing how many people can come out with things that they maybe wouldn't have before. But in my life, I'd told a lot of people about Narconon, and she's the only person I've ever met who spoke out against it. Anyway, so she butted into the conversation and she said it was a terrible thing, Narconon, it was really evil, she'd heard about it, it was really bad. And at first I thought, well, she's got it confused with something else, because it's the best rehab program on the planet, so that doesn't make sense. So at first I started telling her, no, this is what it is, and she's like, no, I know who you are, definitely not, it's bad. Now, and then I was telling about the comparison with this other company group, and how they, you leave them just on a different drug, and they were good and we were terrible. Anyway, this went on for a good 5 minutes, and I wasn't actually upset at all. I was more interested and curious why she felt that way. And eventually I started thinking, maybe I've got a problem here. So I thought, right, I'm going to ask her if she's a suppressive or antisocial personality, then she doesn't really wish any good for any of these people. So I'll find out. So I said to her, right, well, all right, I understand what you're saying, after she'd finished telling me I was terrible. I was like, well, would you prefer it if all these drug addicts just died? And she couldn't help herself. She couldn't hide it. It was just like a massive... She was so she couldn't not be happy about that idea. And it was obvious to me and her friend that yes, she would prefer that. And even her friend was a bit like, oh. And she didn't quite laugh out loud, but she did kind of chuckle a little bit. And so that I was like, okay, so that's what she would prefer. Anyway, at that point, she just grabbed her friend. She says, right, we're leaving now. And I never seen her again. So it was just more of an interesting experience for me. Now, if she'd been my friend, she wasn't my friend, I never knew her. But if she had been, I'm sure through her experience of friendship, she would have been critical or made less of, or tried to, invalidate or make less of any social betterment activities that I was involved in. And she certainly would have had plenty of things to say to her mutual friends, because she would want them thinking bad of me rather than her. I'm sure that's what I've experienced from having friends that turned out to be antisocial. And by antisocial, it is that, you know, what I said at the very beginning, it is they basically have a mental attitude which causes them to oppose violently any betterment activity or group. So they oppose you, you know, and they do make a lot of trouble for the other 80%. Now I'll pick another characteristic. I'll just pick one more, I think, because it's raining. So I've nearly had enough here. But the second one I'm going to pick is, such a person deals mainly in bad news, critical or hostile remarks, invalidation and general suppression. Gossip or bearer of evil tidings or rumourmonger once described such persons. It is notable that there is no good news or complimentary remark passed on by such a person. I think we've all met at least or are aware of one person that fits the bill on that description. But like I say, often it can be quite subtle. The example that sprung to mind there was, like, I had this friend, it was years ago, she was my friend for about 6 months. And I think partly why I missed that she was antisocial, I investigated her later and actually found quite serious crimes. She was a character for sure. But I think part of the reason I missed that she was antisocial was I was actually doing a lot to help her. And I didn't anticipate this stab in the back, which was happening from day one. That's what I hadn't realised. And again, we've all, you know, any adult living on planet Earth, the chances are you've had at least one person, whether it be a close friend or friend, maybe even a partner, business partner, or relationship that's turned out you've discovered that they never had your best intentions at heart at all. Anyway, this friend was, you know, she'd show up at the door at like 6 o'clock in the morning, upset about some terrible bad thing. It's always really bad news. And I would let her in. But yeah, it's like I say, sometimes it'd be subtle. Sometimes on the way in, she'd be like, oh, you're looking a bit rough yourself. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm not looking my best, it's true. You know, she would just put in these wee comments. Or once I found out that somebody else had said somebody had given me a compliment, and this friend had actually been telling me, so a bit a roundabout way, it was that some guy had been saying these horrible things about me. And then someone else said, oh, so-and-so said blah, which is actually the opposite. I was like, oh, that was nice. And I did say, well, you never told me you said that. I even said at the time, she never passed on any complimentary remarks. And often, actually, she just passed on lies and critical or hostile remarks from others. She would tell me daily, I got told about things that people were saying about me. So these are, yeah, I think she fits the bill on that particular trait. Now, as I said, there's 12 traits, and you should find out about them all, and you can do by doing the free course. You can also get yourself a couple of books, Self-Analysis, which I told you about in the last video. You know, you want to, you know, help your memory, feel less stressed, be happier. This is the one. But yes, what I'd really recommend is you have a look at the course, the free course, which we'll put in either the description or the comments, so that you can find out for yourself about the 12 characteristics and how to recognise when you've got such a person in your life. Because if you discover them and you get them out your life, then you'll find that your whole mental attitude can change quite dramatically for the better. And if you find there's an area in life where life's difficult, whether it be relationships or work or whatever, this is where you start looking for it. Or if you've got any antisocial personality having an influence, even if it's an influence as in they're in your ear chatting to you a lot. But anyway, like I say, we'll do the little course. I'm going to give one more chat on this subject, and it's about the social personality, but I'll do that in the next talk. Thanks, bye.